Welcome to episode 6 of the Keith Noble Show. And today we're going to talk about forest management fires. So this show is brought to you by Auto Chicks and Noble's Financial Network, both of which you can find on Facebook. So here I am sitting in a park. Children are playing. There's some people playing soccer. It's a nice morning here. What you'd expect for Colorado in the fall. The trees are shedding their leaves. It's people having fun, yet 50 miles from me, there are fires burning, infernos. So some of you may be familiar with the Gatlinburg fire 4 years ago in Tennessee. And that fire started on federal land and got out of control and burned into Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and destroyed buildings and took lives. It was horrible. So to give you some perspective, we now have 3 fires in Colorado that are burning that are each 10 times the size of the Gatlinburg fire, that are burning into and through towns, that are burning buildings, that are taking lives. The Gatlinburg fire, the blame was placed on federal officials for not communicating. Federal officials, the Gatlinburg fire started in a remote area. The federal officials put a 400-acre box around it with fire lines, thought that would contain it. Winds kicked up. It did not contain it. Federal officials communicated it would burn. It'd take about 19 or 20 hours to burn to get to Gatlinburg. It took 2 hours. It was horrific. So considering Colorado right now, we have 3 fires burning that are each 10 times the size of that. These fires are burning into towns. They're taking lives. It's horrific. It's terrible. And it's unnecessary. So some years ago, the Forest Service changed their management philosophy to everything would be more natural. There would be less access for mechanical vehicles. If you wanted to see the backcountry, you kind of had to walk there. In some cases, you could bicycle there, ride a horse. But what this meant was people were not cleaning out the forest anymore. Historically, people would go to the forest to take these forest roads and trails into the backcountry and clean out deadfall. They could, for a small fee, you could fill up a pickup truck load of firewood and take it home. And this cleaned out so much of the deadfall in the forest. Of course, the other problem we have in Colorado are pine beetle kill. Pine beetles kill these trees, and Forest Service doesn't take them down. We have thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of acres of dead trees in Colorado in the forest. And it's a cumulative problem now over decades, whereas at one time, Forest Service probably could have let corporations, companies, businesses come in, take those trees, harvest them, use them for firewood or whatever other purposes they may have for them. They didn't do that. Forest Service raised the logistical bar so high that it became unfeasible, not profitable, to be able to harvest these trees. So they've just been standing there. And some of them, those stands have been there for 20 years. Just sitting there dead, drying out. And that's what is the fuel feeding these fires. Now, Colorado, it's not unusual in the mountains to have high winds, 70, 80 miles an hour, which is what we have. And that with these tremendous stands of dead trees are what's fueling these fires. We need a change in forest management. We need to allow people back in to clean up the forest, to harvest the deadfall. Corporations, businesses, companies, whatever, commercial enterprises to come harvest the dead trees. There's enough firewood up there for everyone in Colorado for the rest of their life, but they can't get to it because there are environmental hurdles that have to be cleared by these companies, and there's a logistical problem in the roads and trails to access these stands of dead trees have been closed off. Forest Service needs to reopen all these trails and roads so people can get to them. And they need to encourage people, even if it's for free, to come take the deadfall of dead trees. These forests are not healthy. They're just simply not healthy at this point. You can drive through the forest on one of the forest roads that's open, and maybe for 100 yards either side of the road, the forest is clean. The deadfall's been picked clean. Because 100 yards is probably about how far people are willing to drag firewood. You go past 100 yards and there's more and more and more deadfall. Now the Forest Service makes some attempt to remedy this. They'll send crews out in the summer, pick up and cut deadfall, put it in the piles, and then the wintertime, when there's snow, no fire danger, they'll come back and they'll burn those piles of deadfall. But there's far too few people doing this for the Forest Service. Forest Service just needs to let the general public in there to get wood, to get these dead trees out, to get the deadfall out, to get the fuel out. This is not rocket science. It really isn't. And having literally hundreds of thousands of acres burned, which is what has happened in Colorado here in the last few weeks, it's just not acceptable. There needs to be a change in policy in how these forests are managed. So, thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, it's brought to you, the Keith Noble Show is brought to you by the Noble's Financial Network and Auto Chicks. And I'd encourage you to go look up my book on Amazon, Our Dogs Did Not Bark, A Politically Incorrect Dystopian Tale. So, thank you all. Please subscribe to the channel. Talk to you tomorrow.